Chapter 9. Popo returns. Things returned to normal after a few days. Uncle Chewy gave Carlito some extra chores and made sure that he was home every day to do his work. Carlito returned to school and just wanted to forget that he had ever decided to go back to LA and attend M-Dog's funeral. About 2 weeks later, his father told him that Izzy was arrested for possessing guns and drugs and also for suspicion of murder. Someone had shot and killed one of the shooters who had taken M-Dog's life, and a lot of people, including the police, believed that Izzy was responsible. Carlito just thought to himself that he might have been part of that if he had stuck around. Now, all of that was a bad memory for Carlito. Recently, he and Marcella had gone to a movie together and walked around the little town afterwards. He promised her that he was going to create a great art project in the migrant arts program, something unlike anything anyone had ever seen. He had started to collect materials. He was going to build a theater stage so it would look just like the ones on Broadway in New York City. He had collected pictures off the internet and drawn out a design. He also started working on his puppets, the set, and the story. After making drawings of different characters, he had gone back and resurrected his Popo. But Popo was no longer a little boy. Now he was a young man on a mission to save the world from environmental disaster. In Carlito's puppet story, The Tree of Life, Popo lives in the distant future and a dying old man gives Popo the last oak tree seed in the world. One day, Carlito and his uncle were driving through a part of the San Joaquin Valley when he spotted a grand old oak tree in middle of the field. That gave him the idea one of his teachers had taught them about sudden oak death and how the disease was killing oak trees in California. Carlito immediately liked the migrant arts mask-making teacher, Gilbert Perez. Gil was always there waiting with all the materials ready. He had been a muralist and before that an activist with the farm workers. Now he was part of the migrant arts program. When Carlito approached them about making puppets and a puppet theater, Gil said he knew what needed to be done since he had worked with a puppet theater group in Oregon. One summer, several years before, he and Carlito started by making a list of all the materials needed, and then they met to discuss the project. Carlito told him about Popo and that he had made puppets since he was in grade school. He also told him about his story, The Tree of Life. Gil said he liked it, and he made one suggestion that Carlito felt would make the story really come alive. Why don't you keep Popo and the old man as rod puppets like you've planned, but make the others into shadow puppets like they do in Bali, said Gil. That way the shadow puppets will be from another world, the underground world that is sheltered from the environmental crisis. Popo can go to their world and ask them to help him plant the seed so they can all once again live above the shadow world. Carlito thought for a moment and then asked, "How do you make shadow puppets?" "We'll get rawhide and then trace and carve in the faces and other elements such as skin color, eyes, etc. I have some chisels that we can use. When you show the work, we'll use a screen like they do in Bali to protect the images. I think this will be fun," Gil continued. "I've got the leather, the scissors, fabric glue, adhesives, everything." The migrant arts group came once a week every Friday. Carlito could hardly wait for the 3-hour session that ran after school. After a few weeks, the whole project began to take shape. Sometimes Marcella would help Carlito paint some of the figures. He asked her if he would paint the set for the puppet theater, and she said yes. Once, after one of the art sessions, they went to one of the school dances together. Carlito knew he would never forget what it felt like to dance with her. They also spent a lot of time walking together and talking about what they wanted for the future. One day they were talking in a field behind his uncle's farm. It was late afternoon, almost dusk, warm with a slight breeze. One could feel summer in the air. "I want to see the world," Marcella told him. "I want to go to all the places that are famous like Paris and Machu Picchu, but also go to places no one has ever heard of, places in Africa or Asia. I want to see what the rest of the world lives like and looks like." Carlito's wish surprised even him. "I want to be an artist of some kind," he told Marcella. "A puppeteer?" she asked. "I'm not sure," answered Carlito. "I like the whole thing, making puppets, writing the story, creating the stage, and then putting the show on for people. Maybe I'll make movies. Gil told me I should think about being a movie director, but it sounds hard. I don't know. You can be anything you want, said Marcella. Then she stepped toward Carlito and they embraced and kissed. Carlito's whole body warmed up and he felt a chill up his spine. They continued walking, but his feelings were running all over the place and he couldn't think. He just knew that Marcella was the sweetest and most beautiful girl he had ever known. As the term was coming to a close, the migrant art teachers began making plans for the closing program. They planned an art show that would showcase all the building artists. It would be an exhibition and performance night. Marcella's paintings and drawings would be posted on the walls of the school auditorium. There were musicians who would be playing their music and dancers who would dance. They also scheduled Carlitos, the Tree of Life, to have 2 performances on the evening of the show. As the day approached, Carlito became more and more anxious. He was working hard on the farm, at school, and on his puppet piece. He made sure to ask his aunt and uncle to come to the show, and one evening he called his family in Los Angeles. They said they would make the trip. Carlito had grown an inch or so since the last time he saw his family, and all the work on the farm had filled him out. They said they almost didn't recognize him when they came to Uncle Chewy's house. He hugged everyone, especially his father. Carlito left early to prepare for the show. Arturo sat down with Chewy for a talk about what would happen during the summer. "Do you think he's changing?" asked Arturo. "Yeah, something happened. I know he has a girlfriend. She's the niece of one of my oldest friends. A good family. She and Carlito see each other pretty often," replied Chewy. "He's changed. The last trip to LA shocked him. And then the news about his friend being busted and everything. I think he's going to be okay." "Listen," said Arturo, "I know he's doing better. Thank you for having him here. I hope he hasn't been a burden." "Not really," said Chewy. "He's a hard worker. He gets a lot done around here. Maria loves him. I think he should stay through the summer and we should talk again." "Okay," said Arturo. "I think that's what Isabel and I were hoping." When the family arrived at the school, they went straight to the first performance of the Tree of Life. The theater stage that Carlito and Marcella had created was quite large and had 2 levels. One was above ground and the other one was underground in the shadows. The scene on the top level was a world without any trees or flowers, and just one last place had available water. The old man puppet narrated all this to the audience. The lower level was a screen where you could see the shadow puppets moving slowly against bare rock-covered mountains. After the old man tells about how the world is about to end, he calls Popo, who comes out from the back of the stage, and gives him the last tree seed that exists in all the world. It is the seed for an oak tree. If that seed can grow, then maybe the world might be saved. But Popo needs help, and he goes down to the underworld and asks the shadow puppets, a queen, a prince, a farmer, and a ballerina for help. Finally, they agree to help him find a place to plant the seed and perhaps save the world from destruction. After the play ended, everyone in the auditorium stood up and gave Carlito a standing ovation. Arturo could see tears in his son's eyes.